Hello, Andreas. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me here.
The title of your lecture was How to Make an Animal. I'm more interested in another question. How to make a scientist? What was your path to science?
So, in principle, I started when I was 5 years old. So, I was one of my first two words after Mama and Papa were like ant, right?
Yeah.
Ameise in German, and the other one was Gurki because I ate a lot of cucumbers, right? So it would be Kuki, and so Ameise. So the ants were crawling around, and I got fascinated by these crawling things. And then I started also to collect caterpillars, bringing them home, letting them hatch to butterflies, or never became butterflies. They were boring moths at the end. But I caught some. I went to the lakes and collected animals, and then of course I wanted to know what I'm collecting. So I started reading books, and a lot of books about not like parrots or birds and mammals. It was always from the beginning more the insects and not vertebrates or worms and things like this. So and then. I decided, I went for Fasching. We have a celebration where children dress up in school for one day. And then I once year, after I was once cowboy in Zorro, I wanted to be an animal investigator. So I came with a camera, a tropical helmet, and mesh to catch insects. And then it was clear that this will be my path. And I had a short detour, studied chemistry for half a year, and then this was not so successful, and then I decided biology and zoology.
How terrified were your parents of your caterpillar collections?
They were, often it went very smoothly. Only once I went to a shop and got a stick insect, right, which are these insects which are long and thin. And bought only one, right? But I didn't know at that time that they are parthenogenetic, which means that they can produce offspring without copulation. So then suddenly we had the whole apartment full with small baby stick insects. And they were crawling on the TV and on the couch and everywhere. And then they said, so can you bring this insect please away?
There is a stereotype about scientists that they do is sitting in the laboratory, looking at the microscopes, wearing white coats. Is this true? And could you describe your typical day?
Okay, yeah, it is in principle true. So scientists are often just, they are in the laboratory partly, but they are also doing a lot of writing. So they also have to supervise a team. They have to do team building, and they also evaluate other scientists' products, which means either publications and also the grant applications. So when they apply for money, that people and for other scientists evaluate, is this a good proposal, will there be promising research coming out, and does it make sense what is proposed? And this is a major work task nowadays for me. And so the laboratory aspect is a little bit low. I try to still join field trips and collect animals, which I did when I was 5 years old. And so this I keep for myself still, but it changes over the career that you have more and more like writing and reading to do than at the beginning.
What was your latest field trip?
My latest field trip, I have to recall it. It was in the surrounding of Bergen, where you go out to the field and we try to catch a new animal which hasn't been found there yet, only very old description that it should be there. It was not very successful, but this was a boat trip where we got some ground from the bottom of the ocean and dredged it and then looked in this mud for this animal.
Is it possible to find a new species not in the ocean or far away land, but right where we live and work?
In principle, it should be possible. It depends on what kind of animal you want to describe new. There are very species-rich groups, for example, nematodes, which live in the soil, and they are very unattractive for many people, but nematologists, they are fascinated by these animals, and there you can still find new species in the garden, because often not anybody has looked there for the composition of the species, and then one can find new species, yes. But it will not be like a sensation, because there are many species on this planet which have not been described yet.
You mentioned that a large part of your job is to evaluate other scientists. What is your reaction when you get a really bad paper to review?
This is usually I become angry, and then it's the time to stop and let it rest for a day or two, and then one can relax a little bit, because you don't want to transfer your angriness to the comments. They should be still neutral or kind of based on the science, what has been proposed. And therefore I do my rest, and then it takes a little bit longer, maybe, but at least also the person who proposed this will be also more happier with my comments than when I write something angry.
Yes. Imagine I'm a 5-year-old. Can you describe in the simplest terms possible how CRISPR-Cas9 actually works?
Okay. It is a tool to change the genetic information using an enzyme, which is kind of looking for targets, and then you give it a guiding sign, like a very specific address, so that this enzyme knows where to go in this very, very long strand in the genome, and then do a specific modification in this position. And for this, you need to know, of course, what you want to modify, and then you make this address, and you write an address, and then you give it to the enzyme, and the enzyme does it.
Quite simple.
Yeah, for a 5-year-old.
What are the current challenges in biology? What is the most important questions that we should solve right now?
I would say what is not yet fully understood is cognition. So how does really the brain works, and how the brain is organizing the information. So this is a very important area of research, which I'm not doing. I just look at the origin of the brain. I will not come to cognition, because this is not in my area.
I'm sure your research will help.
Yeah, it can help to find very original molecules there, and it could happen. But and then of course to understand, this is what I'm also doing, the evolution of how this diversity has originated in biodiversity, and then of course the connection of how do this biodiversity react to changes on this planet. And as we know all, that we have many species at the moment get extinct, many more than what was in the years before, and also the insects are a problem, that they are dying at the moment, and this is very visible already in my own lifetime, that I found many more insects when I was running around in the field and collected. And also when you drive with a car, at least in Germany, so when you drive with a car, you have less insects on your window anymore. So before, it was like 20 years ago, you had these hits a lot, and now it is getting rarer and rarer, and you don't have to clean the car windows so often. This might be an advantage, but behind this diversity is in principle what one can feel a huge disaster becoming more and more visible.
With all this shrinking biodiversity and all other problems, Do you consider yourself an optimist or a pessimist when it comes to the future of science and the future of humanity?
By nature, I'm more an optimistic person, but it depends regarding these issues. I'm more depending on my daily mood. Right? I can be very pessimistic about it because I see problems which were never in this regard before. And what many scientists say is that when we had a short period of, for example, when the which is a success story, right? When the ozone layer around the poles got more less dense and less protection. It was clear we only need to change these emission of this gas, and then it will be solved. And it was done. And now the ozone layer is bigger again, and it's not a problem anymore. So there is a success story, and this is based on science and on knowledge and observation. And now we have to do many more things to fix the problems. So when I when I think about the ozone hole, then I'm more optimistic. When I think about the insects, which are just simply disappearing, and we don't know exactly why, then I'm becoming pessimistic.
Thank you, Andreas. Thank you for your time and your great insights.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
Thank you for your questions. I enjoyed it as well.